All right, good morning, everybody. My name is Marla Burke. I will be the facilitator today in the New Orleans area. And I've been coming to Erace since roughly, I guess, a couple of years now. I'll read the slogan. Eracism is the slogan of the group Erace, which was formed in New Orleans in the summer of 1993. We seek ways through person-to-person communication to show that we are committed to treating fellow human beings of all color with love and respect. Join us. And then I have the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that what we know as the United States is the traditional territory of Indigenous peoples. Members of our group today are on the lands of the Tonkawan, the Lepon, Apache and Comanche in Austin, the Chitimacha in New Orleans, the Creeks and the Cherokees in Atlanta, the Lenape and Piscataway in Maryland, the Wampanoag and Nipmuc peoples in Boston, and the Cahuilla and Mojave in Riverside County, California. We thank their ancestors for being stewards of these lands through the generations, and we state our intention to continue that stewardship now and into the future. So with that, I'll just have everybody start with introducing themselves, and then I can briefly explain kind of the rules and the guidelines that we follow with Erace. So I'll go on the order on my screen, and that is Louise.
Hi, I'm Louise, been a member of Erace over 2 decades, first in New Orleans and then now in Austin. Sorry, almost forgot where I was. And I definitely am learning something this week. I did not know about this.
Lynn?
Oh, good morning. I'm Lynn Frank, here in New Orleans. And I started coming in the summer of 2019 when we were still meeting in person. Thank you.
Thank you. Cindy?
Good morning. I'm Cindy Morse, retired kindergarten teacher. Been coming to Erace, I don't know, 5 years, maybe. I can just go ahead and look it up. I will by next week. I'm in New Orleans, have heard about Erace for 30 years, but only been active for maybe 5. So I'm glad to be here. Glad to see you all.
Thank you. Bill?
I'm Bill Ives. I'm married to Cindy, and we're glad to be back after our summer travels. It's great to be with you guys. We missed you. So I look forward to our discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Stanton?
Good morning, Stanton, Austin, Texas. I've been coming since Louise was on her winter vacation. That's 6 months now.
Thank you. Nancy?
Good morning. I'm Nancy Moore. I'm in New Orleans. I have been coming to Erace since June of 2007.
Phyllis?
Hi, I'm Phyllis. I'm in New Orleans, and I've been coming to Erace since the summer of 2008.
Nora?
Hi, I'm Nora. I'm in Austin, and I've been coming maybe almost a year. Glad to be here. Thanks.
Thank you. Larry?
Good morning, I'm Larry, and I've been involved with the race since about 1995. Good to be here.
Great. Francie?
Hi, I'm also in Austin, and I've been coming in and out for a couple of years now, I think.
And Michelle?
Hi, I'm Michelle, and I'm in Austin as well. Francie's my mom, and I got introduced to Erace in summer of 2020 by Louise.
And Teresa?
Hi, I'm Teresa, and I'm in Fayetteville, North Carolina, aka Vietnam, because of the 2 military bases, and I've been coming for about a month.
Great. All right. Welcome, everybody. Just a few reminders regarding the meeting to ensure safety and respect. We ask that when you're not speaking to please remain on mute. And I will be keeping a list of folks and we'll call people in order according to the order that they raise their finger. So you'll raise one finger on the screen to let me know that you'd like to be put on the list. And each person who is on the list will have 2 minutes to speak. Please respect the speaker while they are speaking. No side comments to others, no personal attacks, and of course, no name calling. We're just all here to learn and not argue. To explain clarifying questions just briefly, after a speaker is done talking, if you have a question regarding the content of the time that they spoke, you can raise 2 fingers and be called on for a clarifying question, not to give your opinion, however. An example of a clarifying question would be, I didn't understand what you meant by a word or a term. Can you please clarify? And so forth. They're not to further the opinions of the asker and do not require a long monologue or questions that do not qualify as clarifying will not be allowed, and the person can then just be put on the list instead. And I think that is essentially it. I'll explain why I brought the topic, except I see we had one additional person join and it says, hey, it's Dee. It says Clay Lady, so I wasn't sure who that was. Dee, do you want to introduce yourself briefly? Oh, I think you're on mute, Dee.
I'll just undo that. Hi, I'm Dee Dee in California, and I've been attending this Erace meeting for a little bit over a year, and this one is my preference. I started with the one in Georgia, but I like this one better, and so I come to this one. I've been up all night firing my kiln, so if I say anything weird, just let it go. I'm glad to be here, though.
All right, welcome. Glad to have you. Okay, the reason why I brought forth this topic today, I've actually been reading a book, and forgive me as I refer to my notes. I've been reading a book called Patriarchy Blues. I know it's backwards, but you can kind of see it's a beautiful cover. And it is by Frederick Joseph, who is a New York Times bestselling author and educator. And I think he's also done several marketing initiatives and so forth. He made the Forbes top, I think it's top 30 under 30 for, I want to say 2021, but again, I'm not 100% on that. That's by memory. In the book, though, he explores what it means to him to be a man today, and particularly a Black man, and how toxic masculinity has shown up in those experiences for him. And he has one short chapter where he specifically dedicates his discussion to that of exploring hoteps. And the title of the chapter is the hypocrisy of the hoteps and the bourgeoisie. And I appreciated how he came at this topic. He came at it from a place of curiosity and not, from the perspective of a monolith of one group of people, but more from curiosity and a place of learning and nuance. So I wanted to try to find an article that explored those same things. And this is the article that was found. So without further ado, I guess, again, I could briefly ask the 2 folks who just joined to introduce themselves and we could get started. Amal, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you. Yes, I'm Amal. Been coming to racism meetings for 25 plus years and just continue to come and engage in a good conversation.
Great, thank you. Welcome. And Leonetta, welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself? Not sure if she can hear us.
She's muted.
Yeah.
And Marion came in.
Good
too.
morning, everybody.
Oh, hey, Mary.
I'm sorry for coming late. As you can see, I had a problem getting in, and you still seeing the top of my head. I've been a member of Erace since I was an intern with the organization.
Okay, welcome, and welcome to Marion too. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Marion Lagarde. I've been coming to the discussion since 1993. I have a cold this week, so my voice may sound a little gravelly. I may just spend this morning listening, even though I did look up some more information about HOTEP. But I'm glad to see everyone this morning, and I'm looking forward to hearing everyone's remarks. Glad to see everybody.
Thank you. Welcome. Okay, and with that, the list is open, and Phyllis will be helping me by keeping time. I've been having multiple sneezing attacks this morning for the allergies, so I wanted to make sure I kept track of time as well. So I'll keep track of the list, and Phyllis is going to help with time. Anybody would like to get on the list? Teresa? Anybody else? Okay, Teresa?
We're starting with me.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank
I
you.
thought you were waving your finger.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
I just didn't think I was
Yes.
the first on the list, so it caught me
Okay.
off guard. Sorry.
Yes, no, that's okay.
I know
They'll
one of the
see you.
rules is that no name calling, but I'm going to call myself a name because this was a phenomenon which all of you who have been coming to this group for a while know about colorism, meaning you're treated differently because of the color of your skin. Well, I grew up in North Carolina mostly, and then when I moved to Austin, I lived there for 14 years, and for the entire 14 years, people were shocked to find out that I was Black. So the name I would jokingly call myself was an incognito because, it's just like I was never hiding the fact that I was Black, and I was not. Um, I was always surprised every time people would say, "Oh, you're Black," whatever. So when I heard this article or read this article, HOTEP, it just reminded me of me referring to myself as an incognito, just something that's kind of on the surface. I found it funny. Deeper, it's not, and that's just how I see this article on the surface. It's just like, oh yeah, da 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 da. And it reminded me of, for those of you who have Netflix, the show Dear White People. If you haven't watched that series, they have HOTEPs in that series. And so I saw that series mostly as comedy, but really comedy was kind of like the dose of medicine for the more serious issues, and how any term can be positive or negative. There was a time, I think the word nice used to be an insult.
Nancy?
Okay, is that time?
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
I was trying to let folks know that I saw them for the list.
Okay. Okay, so that was just my two comments, was just to recommend watching Dear White People on Netflix if you haven't seen it, because there is a group of HOTEPs, and that might incognito. And I would also like the title of that book you were talking about. I'd kind of ran away from my computer and I couldn't write it down.
I can put it in the chat.
I'll put
Marla
it in
or
the
Maria?
chat.
Okay, thank you.
I'll put it in the chat.
I'm done.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank
Phyllis.
you.
You're welcome.
Next is Bill. And Amal, I see you.
First of all, I want to welcome Teresa. I had a cousin who's now deceased who lived in Fayetteville. She was an Army brat, and she was a very progressive Democrat and working class background. And she joined the DAR because her ancestor was very high in the pecking order. Your pecking order was determined by the rank of your Revolutionary War ancestor. So she joined it so she could boss around the country called Republicans. and put them in line. But also, it was interesting, your comment. I have a friend, a Black man in his 80s, who has relative light skin color, is slightly darker than yours, so it's no mistaking his ancestry. But he said he's gotten pushback from some Black people because he's too light skinned and they don't accept him. But the main thing, I'm trying to understand these terms. These terms were new to me, and is an example of Hotep, Herschel Walker, or Tim Scott, or someone else. And the example of Borgie is Clarence Thomas, or a yuppie. Is a white yuppie the same as a Borgie? So I'm just posing these questions out to the group, and someone wants to answer them who's more knowledgeable than me, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Next, we have Louise, and then after Louise is Nancy, Phyllis, and Amal. Anybody else care to get on the list at this time? Okay, Louise.
Just a comment that I had not heard of that term either, and I love that show, Teresa. But because I was ignorant to what Hotep was, which characters, when you're next on, which characters, or you can put it in the chat, were the Hoteps that you described? Because I think even after reading the article, I'm not quite clear if it is a good thing. You know, I'm not quite sure how Hotep is thought of within the Black community. So I'm still ignorant to that. If you could clarify. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Nancy, then Phyllis, and Amal. Nancy.
Yes, well, I have to honestly say that I was not that familiar with the term Hotep. And I started watching Dear White People, but I think something else caught my attention and I got away from it. So I'm gonna have to go back and watch it again, or start the series over again. But something in the article really caught my attention in this, and it's like down at I think it's at the bottom, where it talks about Reverend Run and Tyrese. And it says, because the idea that a woman's responsibility to prevent men from harassing her has been ingrained in them, Hotep logic takes the straight male as the center of the universe way of thinking and adds a dot of Afrocentricity to it. Ultimately, they don't want true equality. They want to replace white male patriarchy with Black male patriarchy. So I don't know if that is the center of what Hotep is, but that caught my attention. And particularly because there is a Black man in Michigan running for office. His last name is Gibbs. And he's running on this platform of that he doesn't think that women should, not only should women not be in office, but they shouldn't be able to vote. I'm like, where does this dinosaur come from? So is that what Hotep is? If somebody could give me a better definition of what Hotep is aside from this, and I'll get back on the list, because then I do want to talk about the colorism issue, which has been something in my entire life about, well, anyway, I'll get back on the list for that. But if someone would want to explain more of how this feeds into Hotepism, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. Next we have Phyllis, then we have Amal, Larry, Nancy, and Stanton. Anybody else? Okay, Phyllis.
So I was looking, I'm going to look for an article throughout this discussion that I read that talks about the Hotep in Dear White People as a concept. It was only one character, I think, in the first or second season. I'm behind. I haven't caught up on the new season or seasons yet. But I read the comments on this article from the Root, and there was a Latino person and a Hindu person who both stated that their cultures also have like patriarchal people, not just males, because women can be patriarchal too, who want their particular group, the males of that particular group, to be centered and all other groups to be sort of ostracized and seen as less than. And I think that's kind of what the Hotep concept is. And of course, those two people said their cultures don't have a particular name for it. And that led me to think about white people, and it pretty much sums up patriarchal white male supremacy, which includes being against gay people and trans people and women's rights and women's reproductive freedom. So I think there's, every culture has this in it, and it's very regressive. It doesn't move anybody forward. It doesn't help anybody grow or learn to be really open and accepting and humble and kind and empathetic to other people. That's it for now.
Do you need to get back on the list?
Maybe I'll let you know.
Okay. All right. Next we have Amal, followed by Larry, Nancy, and Stanton. And then the list is open after that. Okay. Amal?
Yeah, I'm here. Yes. So the Hotep is just simply an ancient Kemetic or Egyptian word that means peace. So no different from when two Muslims see each other, they say Assalamu alaikum. Two people who are in that Hotep idea culture, when they see each other, they say Hotep. That's all the word means. Whoever the person is that was being interviewed for this article to give their understanding and definition of Hotep gave some ignorantly mass generalizations of what that word actually is. So number one, they said a steadfast belief in illogical conspiracy theories, but they don't give an example of what that means. The other one is an arrogant adherence to respectability politics. No example of what that means. They're just throwing out some nice little fancy words, but they're not giving too many examples of what these things are and mean. Sexism and homophobia. First and foremost, if anybody who knows anybody who's representative of the Hotep model, they model themselves after an ancient Egyptian concept. So the idea of sexism, there's balance in the ancient Egyptian concept, because that's why you had women pharaohs and women who were in positions of power in that ancient Kemetic concept, because there was always a balanced model. So to say that these people are sexist would be illogical, because they model themselves after that ancient Egyptian model where men and women have are equal to one another. So to use the word sexism to describe a person like this would be illogical. And then further down the list, they would use an example like ashy ankles. First and foremost, like, come on, man, like who is this person? You know what I'm saying? The fact that they're not willing to show their faces is letting me know that you're trying to hide behind some type of mask. Ashy ankles, all the shea butter these brothers and sisters use, the ones that I know, they shining if anything. So I don't know who this person is. I don't know where they come from, but these overgeneralizations that they gave as examples of what Hotep or who these people who say that they're Hotep is or represent, they're very ignorant. They obviously haven't met no real people who represents this culture.
Thank you. Would you like to get back on the list?
No, not really.
Okay. We have Larry, then Nancy and Stanton, and the list is open after that. Phyllis?
I'm not sure what my point would be or what question I may have. I've been Black for almost 75 years and I've never heard of the word Hotep. And so this is new to me, but I don't, as much as I could find in terms of what it means, I don't find anything revolution in the word, Hotep, something about meaning to be at peace. Well, I mean, it's just, that's nothing novel. So I'm not sure where I would even fit in terms of this word hotep. And concerning the author of the book Patriarchic Blues, he said in one chapter he explains what it means to be a Black man. I don't think no one Black man could explain what it means to be a Black man, no more than one white man can explain what it means to be a white man. Sometimes there's this opinion sometimes that Black people are monolithic and they all think alike, all look alike, talk alike, sound alike, want the same thing, feel the same thing about issues. You have some 12% of Black men who voted for Donald Trump. So I would reject anyone who said what Black men think. But anyway, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Nancy, then Stanton, Phyllis, and I see Leonetta. Anybody else? Okay, Nancy?
Okay, Larry, you just posed a kind of interesting question there. No one can truly know what somebody is thinking because we're not inside, a person's mind, but you can get an indication of what someone is thinking based on their actions and what they say. So I think that the phrase action speaks louder than words is very true. And so I guess I'm looking at it now. I got to get back to the article where I keep going back to the Reverend Run, because I saw one episode of that. I don't think it was the one that they're referring to here. But there are certain, and particularly after reading that article yesterday about this man named Gibbs who's running in Michigan, there are certain persons in the Black community that have these ideas and these beliefs. I mean, they just didn't pull that out of thin air. I mean, I've run into it before, throughout my life, and I've been here. I just turned 69, and I've been here all a long time, and have run into these very misogynistic and patriarchal attitudes. So, I mean, that's not what I was going to talk about, but that it is a point. I mean, you can't say that it doesn't exist, because it does. Now, if you have a rebuttal to what I just said, please, I'd like to hear it.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. Next we have Stanton, then Phyllis, Leonetta, and Amal. And the list is open after that.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about colorism also, because it is not simply a race issue. It cuts across, I think, all ethnic groups within ethnic groups. Kind of like Teresa, as a kid, I was very, very, very fair complected, had platinum blonde hair, and the Jewish kids I grew up with and their parents used to tease me and call me whitey, and as a derogatory thing, because I was so blonde, and I would be called shagitz, which is a Yiddish word for meaning a non-Jewish man. So I was teased. I wouldn't say I was necessarily isolated or, caused harm, but I was teased for quote unquote not looking Jewish and not looking Semitic. And so I think within every ethnic group, people have a way of singling groups within the group out, and everybody feels they have to be better than somebody else or different from somebody else or more privileged somehow because of skin tone or physical appearance. I mean, we all live in a society where we deal with looksism. And so, yeah, people are shitty. That's all I got to say.
Okay, thank you. Next we have Phyllis, then Leonetta, Amal, and Bill. And the list is open.
First, I want to say I didn't know there were two different terms, the bougie and the bourgeois. And I don't think those are, I guess people are described as being bougie or bourgeois, but it's not necessarily a group, I don't think. I know I told Nancy once I didn't want to watch a show because it was too bougie. And then now I'm like, should I even be using that word? And it was because I like shows where people have more diverse classes, and this one was pretty, everybody was kind of well off. So I also want to say the way the article is written, it does look like an interview, but it's just this one person kind of doing this in a tongue-in-cheek way. I think the ashy ankles is just a joke. I don't think that was just a joke. And so, maybe the author assumes people understand some of the terms like that Amal mentioned. No, I can't find them besides bourgeois and bougie. I can't find the words now, but the ones that he was questioning, what do they mean? So maybe there are some flaws in this person's writing, but I think it sounds like from other people speaking, there is definitely, like I said in my first 2 minutes, that there are people like this in all cultures. And, unfortunately, a lot of them are in the GOP right now, and they're trying to bring our country back into the 50s where things weren't good for anybody but straight white men. So, and can I just say shout out right now to all the women in Iran and the men in Iran who are fighting for their human rights. Bless them.
Okay, next we have Leonetta, then Amal, Bill, and Larry, and then the list is open.
I have a comment about this article. When I saw the word, I said, interesting. I wonder what Saturday is going to be about. But I just want to let everybody know that I belong to the Black social workers, and we use that term as a greeting at the conventions when we together, and all of our correspondence open up with that word. And it, like Amal said, it's an Egyptian word, and it just goes back to. I just want to share with everybody, when you read articles like that, you really need to check out your sources, and because people write crazy stuff, and we know how some people can take things as face value and follow it and do crazy things. So this is just an example of when you read stuff, you just need to check it out, because I don't know where this ought to get this definition for this word, but like Amal said, it's not right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next we have Amal, then Bill and Larry, and then the list is open.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So I just wanted to get back to some of these mass generalizations and these examples that whoever the person's being interviewed gave. And so they said, so number 4 says unbowed and uncompromising support for any Black man accused of any wrongdoing, even if said man's guilt is clear. Like, once again, no example of that. So I'm just trying to figure out where this person's logic is coming from, and who are the people that they encountered that they believe represents this culture, for them to give these mass generalizations. And then like I say, sexism and homophobia facilitate from thinly veiled, or if being gay is natural, how come there aren't any gay elephants? Like, what once again, I'm laughing not because it's funny, but because I just don't understand where this person got their ideas from, and who are the people that they met that they say represents this culture. First and foremost, just because a person is against the homosexual's lifestyle don't make them homophobic. These people, once again, being that they're balanced, they're modeling themselves after the ancient Egyptian model. They believe in life, in the idea, in the ability to procreate and create more life. If you're homosexual, you cannot do that. If you're living according to your craft, you cannot procreate. So that's where that idea comes from, that they believe in the idea of life and procreation. So if you are homosexual, you're not procreating. Simple as that. And so these mass generalizations, then as far as the example he gave with Reverend Run, that's not Hotep or anybody tep. That's just stupid. That's just stupid, because you cannot fault somebody. You can, like it says in the article, you don't blame a woman for somebody sexually harassing or abusing her. That's blaming the victim. So I don't know how he, let me not say he, the person who's being interviewed, because I don't know if they're he or she. I don't know how the person who's being interviewed uses this example as a concept of Hotep. That's just stupidity, and that ain't nobody's tep. That's just stupid altogether. So I'm really at a loss for words, because I've never seen nobody describe Hotep in this manner. I've never seen it before in all of my years, and I've seen people who are Hotep, and none of these examples represents that person. No, they can't. That's not procreation.
Okay, your time was up a while ago.
I've got a lawnmower going by, my apologies. Next we've got Bill, then Larry, Phyllis, and Cheryl, and the list is open. Hopefully you can hear me.
First of all, I want to agree with Amal and several other people who have said that African Americans are not monolithic. You can't
generalize.
Many beliefs. And the GOP is now doing what I think is a disgusting practice of finding Black candidates like Herschel Walker to run for office simply because they're Black, but they have GOP values. So anyway, also, I see some inconsistencies in this, and I'm just trying to understand. This is the first time I've heard the term, but a steadfast belief in illogical conspiracy theories is not usually held by people who have an unbowed and uncompromising support for any Black man accused of wrongdoing. It's my experience, those are not consistent. Because anyway, people who have conspiracy theories, anyway, I won't dwell on that, but I want to also say that colorism is not limited to African Americans. In Spain, Italy, and Mexico, the people from the southern parts of those countries tend to be darker skinned. And the people from the northern parts of those countries tend to be lighter skinned. And the northern people in Spain, Mexico, and Italy look down on the people from the southern parts of their country as less educated and less intelligent. And so that's an example of colorism that's involved with white people. So it's a problem across multicultures. Anyway, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next we have Larry, then Phyllis, Cheryl, and Marion, and the list is open after that.
Louise and Nancy.
Louise and Nancy.
No, not Nancy.
Oh, Louise. Okay.
You know, I was born and raised in Jacksonville, Florida, and lived in South Carolina for 8 years and Mississippi Delta, you know, but it was only when I came to New Orleans that I saw the seriousness of the color aspect within the African American community. I mean, I went to school as elementary, you know, with very light skinned women and boys and girls, and it wasn't an issue with us, you know. But I came to New Orleans, and when somebody first told me there was something called a brown paper bag test, I mean, I was shocked and thought they were joking until I found out that it was real. But there's a couple of terms that sometimes people like to throw out, you know. One is misogyny, person being misogynistic. You know, men by creation has a certain protective instinct towards women. Some men feel it is their lot to protect women. And so because a man expresses views that might be down that line, I think it's wrong for him to be labeled a misogynistic or that he hates women. And the same thing as Amal just mentioned, that, you know, for one to oppose a certain lifestyle doesn't mean one is homophobic against a certain lifestyle, no more than I would be against a heterosexual male who's a homemonger. I would be against that lifestyle, but that doesn't make me have hatred towards that. So, you know, I think we pick up on little terms and we run with them, just like this hotep. And we're gonna try to make hotep out of something that is really not. Thank you.
Next, we have Phyllis, then Cheryl, Marion, Louise, and Stanton. And the list is open after that. Phyllis?
So about the word hotep, I mean, it can have more than one use and more than one meaning in different groups. It doesn't have to have just one strict definition. And, you know, I am personally not about following any ancient models of anything, because people who do that, such as evangelical Christians, tend to not take into consideration the changes in culture, in the world, in the planet, in the way men and women and other genders have evolved. And I think, you know, given what our planet is going through, we actually need less procreating right now, not more. And not that I'm about legislating that in any way, but there was a time where groups felt that lots of babies need to be had so that they could have more warriors and more farmers and more whatever to build their society. But we got plenty of people. We're not lacking for people right now. So I think following any ancient tradition verbatim, be it the Bible, the Quran, the Hotep idea of ancient Egypt, is dangerous and, again, regressive. Thanks.
Thank you. Next, we have Cheryl, then Marion, Louise, Stanton, and Amal. Cheryl?
I didn't think I'd have anything to say about this because it was kind of like, you know, what is this? I read the Root from time to time, but I think it was Amal that said, you know, like, what is the resource that's here? This person calls him my favorite, and then goes on like this guy's some kind of expert about stuff. And I scroll to the bottom, and the author of this, I can't get his, like, it says he's the editor-in-chief of Very Smart Brothers Incorporated. I can't even get that to come up. So I find that interesting. The resource thing is really interesting. This weekend, a friend of mine, I didn't go to the Women's March when after Biden. I actually was greatly offended because there were articles that said that, you know, white women are so privileged that we got to go out and march. And I thought the Women's March that I went to when Mr. Redface came in there were lots of people of all different types here in my city there. And I didn't feel that way. My girlfriend found out that statement that, you know, super privileged white women are the only ones that are out there marching was done by Russian memes or whatever, when they infiltrate our systems and make things come up like it's fact. It wasn't a fact. Those weren't the right numbers, but they were planted. So I really have to double check everything about what I bring in on all of this stuff. Uh, I oops, might have lost this next part. It just seems that that word is we are looking at ways to become more active in the political process, take control of our education, create and support more Black business. These are part of our conversation about nation building has to focus on not using language that degrades us or our history. I feel like the way that this has been used here really degrades its use in history for me. It's a very interesting conversation that we're having. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Next, we have Marion, then Louise, Stanton, and Amal. And probably time for some more if there are.
I did a little reading on the side after I came across this art, and I remembered I'd heard this term Hotep more than 20 years ago in a movie. I'm sure all of you are familiar with. It was a humorous movie based on a little historical fact called The Mummy and the Mummy Returns. And there were terms mentioned, Imhotep and Amenhotep. And Imhotep was considered a genius. I've lost my page about the Amenhotep. But anyway, some years ago, when this Hotep wording came about, the critics began using the word as an insult. The people that were insulted were Martin Luther King, Stokely Carmichael, and Malcolm X, because they were considered to be Afrocentrist. So they got these complaints filed against them because they were comparing their economic ideas unfavorably to this economist, Thomas Sowell. So this is why Hotep started being considered as an insult. They were some critics were really trying to insult Martin Luther King, Stokely Carmichael, and Malcolm X. So I thought that was very interesting. Something that I consider to be historically significant was turned into something comical in this movie, The Mummy. But I think that this conversation that we're having is relevant. And I would just suggest to everyone, do a little more side reading as I did. It's extremely interesting. And it's really a stimulus for the conversation such as what we're having now.
Phyllis has a clarifying question for you, Marion.
Did you say the conversation we're having is relevant or full of it?
No.
Okay, I couldn't hear.
No, it's full of interesting.
Okay.
Full of interesting. No, it's relevant, not
okay.
Full of irrelevancy. No,
Thank you.
It's relevant.
I just misheard.
It's cold and this mask.
That's all right.
Hindering my speech.
It's all right.
Thank you. Next, we have Louise, then Stanton and Amal. Louise.
So they're my people, the ancient Egyptians, my heritage, ancestors. My father is from Egypt. Colorism, as Bill was talking about, is very much alive and kicking in Egypt. My father is from northern Egypt, Cairo, up north, and the further south you go down the Nile, the skin gets darker and darker and darker. And definitely my dad was a complete snob and would look down on people from the Sudan or Lower Egypt. So there is also, I just want to clarify the procreation stuff. Obviously, you're thinking just basic procreation, man, woman, have sex, have baby, but gay couples can have babies, insemination, to a surrogate or insemination to themselves if you're a female gay couple. I mean, there's ways of having and raising a baby, which is procreation in my mind. Just wanted to state that. There's also, if I have time, I think I've mentioned it before to you, but when I very first came to the States in New Orleans, and I worked with the youth of New Orleans, young teenagers, Black teenagers, and I was chatting with this girl, and we were just talking about, you know, she likes who, she likes whatever. And I said, oh, what about so-and-so? Do you not like him? She goes, oh, no, he's too dark, in a way that it was like, you know, ew, no, you know, and she was light skinned. And that just hit me. That was one of my first, like, oh, what is this place? Why, what's going on here? And started to learn about the psyche of, or at least look into it, you know, and try to understand it. That was it.
Thank you. Next, we have Stanton, then Amal and Cindy, and then the list is open for a couple more if desired.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on something Louise said. I know a lot of gay people who have children because they had heterosexual sex with people of the opposite sex and procreated, and they're still as gay can be. The other thing is when people talk about don't approve of a lifestyle, that implies that that's a choice and that people choose to have a lifestyle that is totally full of crap. Again, you know, it may not be phobic, you may not be homophobic, you may not be misogynistic, but you sure are heck very judgmental. I can just tell by the judgment. And I just am shocked that we still have people who talk about lifestyle. And it reminds me of white people who say, oh, I don't hate Black people. I just don't want to live with them. I don't want to live near them. I don't hate them. I just don't want to be around them. I'm done.
Thank you. Next, we have Amal and then Cindy.
Yeah, so I'm actually okay standing with them white people who don't want to live around me. I'm okay with that. That's not a problem for me. Once again, those gay people that you talked about had sex heterosexually to have those children. They wasn't practicing the craft that they say they practice, which is homosexuality. If you are homosexual and you're practicing your craft, you cannot procreate. That's nature. That ain't me talking. That's nature talking. So however you want to philosophize it, or however you want to generalize it, at the end of the day, homosexuals can't have children if they practice in their craft, which you just described as a homosexual who stepped outside his craft, his or her craft, and had sex heterosexually. Yeah, you can have children like that. But if you're practicing your craft, you cannot have children if you're true to what you say you are. Obviously, that person was. Now, as it relates to colorism, the idea of colorism as practiced in the African American community, and I can't speak for other communities, the idea is the more European, the more European you look, the more desirable you are. The less European you look, the more undesirable you are, going back to the example that Louise gave when she said that the boy was too dark, meaning that he looks more African. We don't use it in those terms or in those words, but that's what's implied. The lighter you are, the closer to European you look, the more desirable you are. The less European you look, the less desirable you are. That's what colorism has meant in African American community, going back to the brown paper bag test that Larry talked about. Also, there was a thing used called the hair comb test. A lot of people don't talk about that as much. Is that what they would do is they take a fine tooth comb and they would bring it through your hair. And if it goes through with no problems, then you were okay. If it get caught up, then there was a problem. So those concepts still persist today. just not the way they did 50 years ago, maybe.
Thank you, Amal. Next we have Cindy, then Phyllis, Bill, Nancy, and Cheryl, and then I think we should probably start the wrap up after Cheryl. Cindy?
When you're a new teacher in Louisiana, you have to take a Louisiana history course. And one aspect of the course I took at Tulane, and again, the guy who taught it was an expert, whatever that means, mentioned or talked extensively about skin color being a definition historically in the Black community, that the very light Creoles had a lot more status. And then when slavery began and there were more Africans, darker, suddenly there was a conflict within the Black community because of the differential. So that the Creoles, the lighter skinned Blacks, lost status because of they were being lumped into the category with the slaves, which is not how they saw themselves, or mostly how the existing at that time white community saw them. They were kind of an interim, and that's accurate. But the status was very different and was applied probably unfairly, but it's reality. That's what happened 150 years ago. I think there is still remnants of that today. Just in listening to Black parents talking about their kids, defining things by the color of their kids. In teaching, I heard a lot of conversations among parents about how light or how dark. It's very sad for the kids. So, but I think it's reality. We need to get away from defining people by those traits, any of those traits. Enough said.
Thank you, Cindy. Next we have Phyllis, Bill, Nancy, and Cheryl. Phyllis?
Well, first I want to say that this alleged natural instinct to want to protect women, I don't know if I'd call it a natural instinct. I think it's a socialization, but also, what do men like that think they have to protect women from? Other men. You're not protecting us from women. You're not protecting us from wild animals for the most part, because we don't live like that. And so that just throws back that the problem is toxic masculinity and the patriarchy. If the patriarchy didn't exist, women wouldn't have to be fearful of men. If, it'd be great if women could take walks alone after dark. Why can't we? Men. Not because we're afraid of the raccoons in the neighborhood or the dogs or passing some other woman. It's only men. And to go back to what Stanton said, I agree with what you said. Maybe the term heteronormative is better than saying somebody's homophobic, since people don't seem to want to say they're afraid of something, but they definitely think that being heterosexual is the norm and everything else is a choice or a lifestyle. And that is incorrect. People are born the way they're born. God made people born the way they're born. And that includes transgender people, because just because there's some dangly bits on the outside doesn't mean the inside spirit of that person matches that. And I'm thankful we live in a culture now where there is protection for the little ones who realize that about themselves very young. And thankfully, I know people who are really supportive of their children going through that in this day and age. Thank you.
Okay. Next we have Bill, then Nancy and Cheryl, and then we'll do the wrap up.
Okay, I want to quickly respond to things that three other people said. First of all, he talked about the hair comb test. The architects of apartheid came to America just to discover how they create a system of racial oppression, because the Afrikaans were faced with declining British rule, and they they wanted to protect their status. They knew they would be outnumbered 5-1 by Africans. So the hair comb test was used to determine whether you were Zulu or African or colored. And the colored status was different, mixed race, but it's ridiculous regardless of who determined it. Larry said, and I wanted to give one more data point, when he encountered colorism for the first time in his life was in New Orleans. And I gave the anecdote about my friend who's in his 80s, who lives most of the year in Massachusetts. He said the only time he's encountered colorism is in New Orleans, because he spends a lot of time here. I don't pretend to be an expert. That's just one more data point. And I want to follow up what Stanton said. The concept of a gay lifestyle being attributed to all gays, men and women, is ridiculous. My experience is I know a number of people who are involved in same-sex relationships, and I don't know any of them who would fit the archetype, the stereotype of the gay lifestyle. That's a slanderous term. And I want to say that, as he said, you don't have to have sex with a woman to raise a child. Our Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, is a great example, because he and his partner have adopted a child, and they're going to raise it as a family. And also, he's a great example of someone who's not involved in the gay lifestyle, whatever
Well,
that.
would you like to finish in the wrap up? I think you hit the 2 minutes.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay, thank you. Next we have Nancy and then Cheryl.
Yeah, I have a couple of points to make, like 3 points. I know a gay couple who have a biological child. All right. And what they did is one partner donated the sperm, the other partner's sister donated the egg, and they hired a surrogate. So they have a biological child. You can have a biological child if you are a same-sex couple. All right. And these are excellent parents, better than a lot of heterosexual parents that I've seen. And this child is healthy. This child is well adjusted. And anybody would be proud to have this child as their child. Okay. 2, there are gay animals. I hope y'all know that. You don't believe it? Go up to the zoo. The giraffes are gay. They're all male and they're gay. And at times they have to break them apart. Okay. When they're out in the exhibit area, sometimes they get urges and they got to break them apart. So yes, gay, same-sex relationships, people are born that way. Animals are born that way. Okay. And obviously God intended that. Okay. This sexual orientation construct is man-made. Okay. Thirdly, colorism is everywhere. It's not just in New Orleans, it is everywhere. Up and down the East Coast, the West Coast, wherever in the United States, Michigan, it is everywhere. And anyway, that's it. That's what I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. And then finally we have Cheryl, and we'll start the wrap up for the folks who haven't spoken after Cheryl.
It's very general. It's not about the article. I just really needed to say I have feelings and beliefs, and I don't think that it's right for me. And I want you all to correct me if you catch me doing it, because I'm a very opinionated person. If I act like I know the absolute truth, would you please correct me? Because I don't want to come across that way. And my feelings are really hurt right now because I have lots and lots of gay friends. I'm 65 years old. I am a straight, cis, female, gendered person. But, I think that, like, if you haven't taken the time to open your heart to all people and get to know people and know how difficult it is for a person, in my opinion, in my feelings, for a person to actually be able to live their own life, it's hard for everybody. I want to be a person that helps promote all people to find themselves. But, nobody knows the truth, not humans. I don't have to get religious or spiritual on that one. We're all learning together. And that's my wrap up. It's been really nice to be with all of you. I'm going to go spend some time in my garden where the butterflies and all the bugs and everything are living natural lives, because everybody's human opinion sometimes is just a little too much. Thank you for being with me today.
Thank you. Okay, to start the 2-minute wrap up, correct me if I missed anybody, but the folks who have 2 minutes and who didn't speak during the actual main time are Nora, Francie, Glenn, if he's still here, I don't think he is, Michelle, Lynn, and Marva. I think I got everybody. Okay, Nora, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, just Hotep, the original meaning sounded so lovely, at peace, in peace, and it's interesting what all the significance that got attached to it. I'd just like to go back to at peace, in peace, Hotep. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And let's see, Glenn is gone, I guess. Yeah. Okay, Michelle.
Hi, I hope everybody can hear me. My internet's been giving me problems today, so that's kind of why I've stayed off camera. My apologies. I don't know if I have much to add. I've just been listening, and I wasn't expecting to be here today, so I'm kind of like out of my element. I've had a lot going on. I was supposed to be in Ireland right now, but my mother-in-law fell and broke her hip, so we've been dealing with that at my family. But I've just heard a lot of negativity today towards people, and I just want to remind everybody to, I guess, lead with curiosity and kindness, and so I don't think a lot gets accomplished by kind of bandying terminology and things that, judgments around. So that's all I have to say. But I hope everybody has a good week, and I will be here next weekend, as I was not expecting to again. So take care, everyone.
Thank you, and sorry about your trip and your mother-in-law, not in any particular order. Okay, Lynn.
This corruption of the word Hotep, instead of saying people are at peace, it makes it sound like the people who are Hotep are not too attractive people, or hypocrites, and so on. And it just reminded me of how many expressions have been corrupted over the last year or so, and they always have been. I read this article in Mother Jones, and it was saying, look what's happened to the term Black Lives Matter. The people who want to oppose an affirmative, caring attitude towards Black people and to save their lives and to stop violence and to stop police violence have made up Blue Lives Matter. And they've reduced the Black Lives Matter slogan to meaninglessness. Look at I Can't Breathe. George Floyd was honestly saying desperately, I can't breathe. And people who didn't want to wear masks corrupted his saying to try to render his saying meaningless. Oh, and this term woke, I think was originally a reminder to people to stay alert and to watch out for ways in which some people could be discriminated against. And the right-wing society has co-opted woke, and this Tim Scott, the Republican from South Carolina, has used the word woke to refer to everybody he doesn't like, mainly liberals. So language is a weapon, and you have to watch out for that. So it is a shame that HOTEP has been corrupted in some areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we can start with the 1-minute wrap-ups, and I'll just go in the order that I see on my screen. Oh, I'm so sorry, Marva. You have 2 minutes as well. My apologies. I am looking at my scroll and it is not good. Go ahead.
Sorry, I missed this meeting because it sounds like I missed a lot. And I'm going to watch the meeting and our discussion on YouTube. Can anybody tell me when it's available?
It should be available within an hour of us ending the meeting.
I'm so sorry. I missed this discussion. It seems like I would have a lot to say concerning the Creoles and the different shades of people of color. I experienced that. I'm 75 years old, and I lived most of my life through segregation, integration, and racism. I'm sorry I missed this meeting once again. Thank you.
Thank you. That's okay. That's the beauty of the recording. Okay, I think I got all of the 2-minute folks. So we can go ahead and start the 1-minute wrap up, and I'll start in the order that I see on my screen. Bill?
Yes, I enjoyed the article. I don't know if enjoy is the right word. It was informative. I was not familiar with the concept of HOTAP, but so this was educational, but I am very familiar with the concept of colorism. And the last thing I want to do is second Michelle's comment about that we shouldn't engage in negativity towards a particular group. And we certainly should not engage in stereotypes. The stereotypes that I know of Africans, people of African descent, and gays are baseless. They reflect to a very tiny minority of both of those people. Those are the groups of people. So anyway, that's enough.
Okay, Phyllis?
Well, I put a book in the chat. It's called Biological Exuberance, Animal Homosexuality and Natural Diversity by Bruce Bogomil. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. I have it on order. I'm waiting for it to come. I'm looking forward to reading that. I think we should all just remember that diversity exists all around us in nature, not just in people. And science is a miracle. Like Nancy described her friends, I have friends with a lesbian couple. The one of the partners carried a child that was the brother, the semen came from the brother of the other partner, and I think her own or someone else's. So I think her own. They have a biological child as well that's genetically related to both of them. So I'm pro science.
Thank you, Louise.
Oh, so still a little confused about Hotep meaning and stuff. I think I'll go with Amal's description because I feel that the author of this article was kind of discredited throughout the meeting. So I'll go with that. And I love, Lynn, when you say words are weapons. Yeah, absolutely. And I love all the examples that you've given. That is so true. And the fact that sticks and stones, that old saying, that old chestnut, sticks and stones might break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Yeah, that's not quite true, is it? And I think my takeaway from today, and I hate to say it, is gay giraffes going at it. Sorry. Love
Okay.
you all.
Larry? One?
Yes, thank you. You know, when Pharaoh in Egypt feared the rise of the Jewish population, the first thing he attempted to do was to get rid of all the males. He said, come now, let us deal wisely with them. And he gave instructions for every midwife to kill every male child that came out of the Jewish woman's womb. You know, there's an attempt in America, some recognize it, but some Black men can detect that there is an attempt to emasculate the Black man, making him feel somewhat less than a man. And some Black men have, from Hollywood to Tyler Perry, you name it, you know, and because a man chooses to be a man, doesn't make him homophobic, doesn't make him toxic masculinity. I think a man was created by God to be the protector of his wife and his family. Okay, my time is up. Thank you.
Thank you. Cindy?
Mm-hmm.
It was an interesting read, but the discussion was so much more than the article started out to be. I wasn't familiar with either word. We really didn't talk about bougie or whatever that means. It's not something I run across very often, so I'm not going to really worry about it, but I'd like to have more understanding of where that's coming from or what that means for the future. But words are powerful. We need to be aware and careful with what we say. Thank you.
Thank you. Stanton?
I just want to share that at the end of next month, I will be practicing my craft with the same man for 42 years. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Okay, Nancy?
Very interesting article. Thank you very much for bringing it. Generated a lot of discussion and things for people to think about, which is the point of this organization, is to listen and think about not only what you hear other people say, but to think about your own beliefs. And maybe you need to revise them, you know, or at least think about them, you know, and whatnot. And that's why I enjoy coming here. Thank you very much. Oh, and when I read the article, I was like, oh no, she didn't. She's calling Black people on this stuff. Very good. Congratulations.
Okay, Dee Dee, and I apologize. I think you have 2 minutes. If I'm not mistaken.
Probably, but I really don't need 2 minutes.
Go ahead.
I'm like Larry, I've been on this planet for 74 years and I've never heard that word either. And reading that article wasn't great. Okay. It didn't help a whole lot. But some of the other things that came out in this meeting were good. The concept of colorism is all over the globe. Okay. Everybody's got some form of it, and it's their choice to let it flourish, or it's their choice to ignore it. And I choose to ignore it. But sometimes I find myself in a not a popular space, but I do choose to ignore colorism. And I too grew up being made fun of because my hair isn't typical of a Black woman. And it used to, kids used to pull my hair in school to see if it was real. And, you know, or they would dig around and try and see the roots to see if it was real all the way to the roots, or if it was actually my hair. And things like that are hurtful, but they're what kids do. And so there we are. But I enjoyed this discussion. Just kind of opened my eyes to other things that are out there that I haven't been exposed to, and to kind of dig a little bit deeper and see if this is something I need to be just aware of or something I actually need to deal with. So thank you for the meeting this morning. It was wonderful.
Thank you. Marion?
Thank you for the article. Excuse me. I think I told you all I have a cold, and I know this mask isn't helping, but not much longer. Cindy, bougie comes from bourgeois. One of my male in-laws in the past, God rest his soul, he's deceased. He called me bougie to my face. Bougie also means if you're referring to a Black person, you're stuck up. I'm not stuck up. You all know that. I think he was insecure. I'm college educated, and he seemed to be resentful of that. I was married to his brother for over 25 years. His brother went to college too, but he didn't call his brother bougie, but he called me bougie, because I think it was mainly because I am a Black educated woman, and he had some insecurity about that. So I know who I am, and I'm very confident in my skin. I am not bougie.
Thank you.
Thank you for the article.
Teresa?
Well, Lynn made my first point, and then I was going to make the point that Marion just expressed, so I have nothing to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Leonetta?
I enjoyed the discussion this morning. The article was crazy, but the discussion was great. And I just wanted to ask people do they see the connection with the colorism and to the colonialism that's what was around the world? Look like all the countries that were colonized have a problem with colorism. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheryl?
Just wanted to wish everybody a real good week, and thank you for a great conversation. Very interesting article, Marla.
Thank you. Amal?
Yeah, great article. And like I said, a lot of mass generalizations of what a person who said that their hotep represents, because the examples that that were given were terrible examples, and I have no idea where that person got those examples from. All of the examples that everybody gave of their homosexual friends and family members who have children were scientific. None of them were natural. Everything was scientific. So I never said that science could not intervene and help homosexual couples have children. I said that they can't naturally procreate. So until somebody could give me a natural example, going back to what Stanton said, he's with his partner for 42 years. 42 years, y'all ain't got no children that y'all made together. Why? Because you can't do it. Bars.
Okay, that's the minute. I think Phyllis did it. Get
It
ready.
did, yeah.
Okay, all right. Thank you, everybody, for the conversation. I'm just like, phew, over here. I'm glad that this was brought forth. I'm glad for this discussion. First off, I will echo what Phyllis said in response to the last comment. Science is nature. And I concur with that comment as well. Those were my exact thoughts. I guess I should have been a little more clear in the beginning in talking about Frederick Joseph. And that's that he was actually hesitant to write the chapter on Hotep because of all the nuance surrounding the topic. As we can see here, we had tons of nuance in the conversation, which I think is a real gift and a wonderful thing of the Erace community, that we can have those discussions. But just for purposes of the discussion, I just wanted to kind of briefly read Frederick Joseph's definition, which I wish would have been a little more clear in the article that was not by Frederick Joseph. Frederick Joseph says, a Hotep is often defined as a Black person who considers themselves to be pro-Black and knowledgeable about institutions of whiteness and how they've oppressed Black people. This group often leans heavily into Afrocentric attire and what could be considered Afrocentric aesthetics and vernacular. All of this is conceptually great on the surface. And he says, even I would have considered myself a Hotep if that was all there is to it. But he goes on to say how a lot of the ideas that folks who may be considered or grouped by some, and again, not a monolith, as we already talked about, as Hotep, is that the danger is in the unawareness that the ideas and thoughts that they uphold are hindering us from all being free. And so my first thought was white feminists. You know, we like to think that we're doing a phenomenal thing and that we're all about Black liberation too, and that everybody should be free. But in reality, we all know white women specifically have been very, very harmful in Black liberation and talking about Black folks. And I think that in a similar way, Hoteps or so-called men who are Black who uphold concepts of potentially homophobic, they are potentially homophobic, not all. They may specifically believe that only they should be liberated, and they specifically fight and believe in their liberation, but not necessarily the liberation of Black women or Black trans folks or others that they may be reaching down for, if you will. And so that's where I think the term comes from. I don't know specifically, again, like where it was born, except for the peace be with you and those things that I think are, you know, very wonderful and positive. I'd be curious to learn more about how we come up with a lot of these terms, but I will say one thing's for sure, that white folks appropriate these terms all the time. And like Lynn had pointed out, woke, and I think of Karen, how that was, you know, taken by white people and completely just thrown around and used as a weapon also. So I don't know that I'm really making a whole lot of collective or cohesive sense, but the bottom line for me is I don't think we can gatekeep or act in certain groups to gatekeep who or who not is worthy of liberation. that every single human being, regardless of color, sexual orientation, gender, and so on, all folks are equal in as it comes to being free. We all deserve freedom. It's not a right. It's not a privilege. It is a right. And we need to use our discretion in how we look at all of these groups. So that's it. I don't know if anybody else has anything briefly to add, and I don't know that I want to open that bag up again. But I really appreciated all of the comments, and thanks for being so gracious too as I navigated the facilitation.